Okay, welcome back. The info command is actually a slightly better version of the main pages. So I'm going to go info cp, and again, it's just, well, now this one's kind of cool because the info command itself allows you to like page back and page up and all sorts of cool stuff. And it's just yet again another thing that you can do. So I'm going to go ahead and just type Q to quit out of that guy. But so if you man page, info, dash dash help, apropos, info, and believe it or not, we're not done. Sometimes the amount of a lot of information you need is just huge. And so rather than putting it in a file format like this, so it has to be run from an application, they just put it in a file and tell you where to go. So for example, if you go to user, so let's go here to, I almost did that on my Windows system. Boy, oh boy, that would have been dumb. So if I go to user, there's a thing called share. So I'm going to go into share. And there's a bunch of stuff in here, but believe it or not, there's one of them is called doc. So I'm going to go to user share doc. And this is where some documentation is. And so for example, let's go find, I don't know. There's the tree command. So let's go to tree. And so here is information. Well, actually, that's not very useful information, but nevertheless, it tells you about the copyright. It tells you about the to-do list and the change log and all sorts of interesting things. That was actually a pretty dumb one. How about Vim? I'm going to go back up. We're going to be using Vim here in a while. It's basically the same stuff. Anyway, information that just in tabular format or just honest to God documents that you can just read. Okay, cool. So the FTP directory, let's go to FTP. Maybe we can find something. Okay, how about, I want to look at bugs. So one of the ways you can look at a file, if I just want to display the contents of a file, I'm going to go ahead and just say less and then bugs, because I don't really know how big this thing is. It could fit on one page, right? Don't know. And so, it was very, very short. Okay. So that's kind of sort of how that works. Okay, so we talked about aliases, right? So if I type the word alias, hey, I'm going to go back to my home directory. So there's 3 ways to do that. I'm going to do it in the simplest humanly possible way to do it by just typing CD and hitting return. Okay, cool. All right, if I type the word alias, it's going to show me all of the aliases that I currently have. And you might think, wait a minute, I don't remember doing that. Well, of course not. It did it all kind of for you. So there's a bunch of stuff in here, and I'm not going to get into too much detail, but one of the things you need to kind of think about is if I want to create an alias myself, then I'm allowed to do that. So I'm going to make one. So let's say that I always do ls minus ALD. Okay, I do that every single time, and I want to have an alias that that does this for me, so I don't have to do that. Okay, so I'm gonna create an alias called kumquat. It's pretty straightforward. I would just start off with alias, dang it, kumquat equals, and then I would just type whatever the heck I want this thing to be. So I would type ls minus ALD and hit return. So, whoa. Oh, I have to put that in quotes, don't I? Sorry. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so now if I type alias, my kumquat guy should be there, and I should be able to type kumquat, and it does what I told it to do. Cool. And what command tells me whether or not this is an alias or not? Which one was that? The type command? Okay, cool. Alrighty. So we're going to do this, okay? We're going to have a homework assignment where you have to create an alias and make it do stuff. And by the way, let's just make this alias a little different. There's no real editing. You just, when you have an alias that already exists and you want to change it, you just change it. I mean, you just whack it basically and start over. So I'm gonna try that again. Except this time I'm gonna put 2 commands in there just for the heck of it. So let's say I want to CD back to my home directory and then do that. Okay. So the semicolon basically means stack 2 commands on the same line. So what that basically means is CD first and then do an ls blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. So now no matter where I am, if I go to / and I'd say kumquat, it's gonna pop me into my home directory and then do that. Okay, kind of makes sense. Now, here's a good Trivial Pursuit question. Because the CD command worked, am I now at my home directory or am I left up at root? In other words, is this exactly the same as the human typing CD, enter and then ls minus ALD? You bet it is. So I am no longer at root. You can tell by the little prompt there. I'm actually someplace else. So let's say I want to get rid of something. Well, there's this cool thing called unalias. That's kind of dumb, but hey, unalias kumquat. And so now it's gone. Dang it. Keys are getting sticky today. Okay, so alias, put things in quotes. You could have 2 things in there, separated by a semicolon. Cool beans? Okay, I'm ready to move on to Chapter 6. Now, Chapter 6 is another one of those fundamental things, just like Chapter 2 was. Chapter 2 was all about relative things, and this is all about redirection, and we're going to do an awful lot of this, so don't skip over this. Okay, on page 53, by the way, when I call off the page numbers in the printed copy of the book are different than the PDF version, so I'm not absolutely certain what page numbers are which, so just bear with me. Anyway, Chapter 6, you can find it. Okay. They start talking about this concept of the standard in and the standard out and the standard error. Okay, these are things that actually have been around for quite some time. And further, Microsoft Windows actually has the same thing. They actually have a standard in, a standard out, and a standard error. You just don't ever see them. Unless you're a programmer working on the Windows console application. So the standard in basically means that device which is currently taking input. Well, right now that device is the keyboard. The standard out is that device which is currently displaying the answers, which right this very second is the terminal window, right? Okay? And the standard error is that device which receives error messages, which in our case is also the terminal window. Kind of makes sense? So right now we have standard in is being controlled by the keyboard, standard out being displaying on the screen, and the standard error being displayed on the screen. Cool? All right. So if I want to redirect something, so I do not want it to go to the screen, then, so for example, let's go here and I want to do, let's do ls minus al user bin. Okay, now that's going to be a long list, wouldn't you think? Let's just hit, okay, long list. Now, instead of just seeing that on the screen, maybe I want to look at that and kind of go through it and mess with it. So I want to redirect that. Instead of going to the screen, I want to redirect the standard out and point it to a file. So here's what I'm going to do. Whoa. Huh. Okay. I'm going to do ls minus al user bin. And then I'm going to use a little greater than symbol. And the greater than symbol is going to redirect the standard output and put it into a file that I create. So I'm going to call this one, how about user bin, I'm going to say .out. Remember, dot doesn't mean anything at all to the computer. That's just humans. So .out. So nothing appeared on the screen. Were you expecting something to appear on the screen? I certainly hope not, because we told it don't go to the screen. We told it to go to a file instead. So there should be a file here. And sure enough, there's a file pretty good size. It's 52K of something called user bin. Okay, user bin.out. Let's go look at it. Remember how we use the less command? And so this essentially is what we typed. I mean, this is what would have shown up on the screen if we did not redirect it. I'm just hitting the space bar to get through all this, the entire list, and hit Q to get out. Cool. Remember how the less command works? All right. So we have successfully redirected. Now, did that file already exist, the user bin.out command? Did it exist prior to us doing this? No. So if it doesn't exist, it's going to create it. Cool. All right. So now I want to do this again, except this time I'm going to do something that's going to make an error. Okay. I'm going to do an ls minus al user kumquat, and I'm going to redirect that into kumquat.out. Okay. Well, there is no file called user or directory called user called kumquat, but I still got an error message on the screen. On the screen, because the standard error is still pointing at the screen, even though I told it that the standard output should be to redirect it. By the way, I should have nothing in that file, right? But the error message still remained. Ooh. Okay, so that's kind of sort of interesting. So we'll come back to this in just a second. So let's say, for example, that I want to do an ls minus al on my current directory, okay, and I want to add that to the previous one we did, the one that was user bin.out. Okay, so if I just do this. Unfortunately, that's going to blow away the existing file and replace it with this. Okay? So here are the rules when you're doing the redirect. The file does not have to exist. It'll be created. If it does exist, it's going to get wiped out. So I don't want to wipe it out. I want to append to it. And so the way you append is with two greater thans. Greater than says, okay, I want you just to append to it if it already exists. By the way, what happens if you use greater than on a file that does not exist yet? Is that going to be an error? If you tell it to append, nah, it's okay. The machine says, look, I know you meant to append, but if it doesn't exist, I'll create it anyway. So a more technical way of looking at it would be create or append. Okay, so I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to go back to that thing, less user bin.out. And so it's going to be in alphabetical order, right? Except when I get down to the bottom, and then it's going to be able to switch over to the new stuff that I added to it. See, here's the new stuff that got added at the end. Cool beans? Okay. So a single redirect means put it in a file. Double redirect means either create a file or append it, but don't whack it. That makes sense? Now let's go back to the error message thing. Let's say, for example, I got to here, and let's say I want to capture the error message and put it in something else. Well, here's a way. Remember, the standard error is they're numbered. Okay, standard in is 0. I don't know why they give numbers. Standard out is 1, and standard error is 2. Okay, so if I say to redirect, and then say kumquat err, that's going to take the error message that I saw on the screen last time and put the error message inside another file. So no error message appeared on the screen, did it? Okay, this is a good place to start for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.